his win last night. Trump staged one of the most bizarre news conferences that turned infomercial that I've ever seen. It was an infomercial for businesses that don't even exist. He talked about Trump steaks last night while using steaks from a company that had nothing to do with Trump or any of his organizations. And then he went on about Trump water and Trump vodka and Trump magazine, which were essentially out of business. He found like some copy of Trump magazine and I don't know, some intern printed out somewhere and said, look, it exists. And then he talked about Trump Winery, which isn't even like his business. Like his kid has like an estate in the South with some wine. Peter, what did she make of that bizarre press conference for products you can't even buy?
Yeah, I feel bad for the intern who was on eBay till 2 a.m. trying to track down that Trump magazine cover. It's so beyond rational discussion. You say it over and over, but I mean, it's who could possibly have imagined that any of these things would be happening? I mean, you could take the bright side and say, well, he didn't talk about his dick, so we moved ahead. Now he's just stumping for, as you said, businesses that don't exist. Trump is just having the greatest time. You look at someone like you just look at somebody like Hillary, for whom the campaign process just seems like such a nuisance. It just seems like such a chore for her. Bernie, the same thing. I mean, he carries so much anger and weight around with him. Every speech, you feel like he's going to blow an aneurysm, and that's going to be it. Same Cruz, the same thing. They don't seem to be enjoying themselves. And then there's Trump, who is just, forgive it, I mean, whipping these things out and having the greatest time. He's like a performance artist. And he's absolutely convinced that it doesn't matter what he says or does. And so far, he's been remarkably right when we, the collective pundit class, have been wrong pretty much in a one-to-one basis with Trump being right.
Hey, Josh, doesn't this just come off as petty, though? I mean, someone made fun of his wee-wee, so he made a big thing about it at Fox News debate. Someone made fun of his businesses that failed, even though he still has somewhere like over $4 billion worth of stuff he has to pump out. I mean, someone else's steaks and call them Trump steaks.
Again, it's so amazing. I watched it, and I thought, like, this must be what going mad feels like, because I knew what I was seeing couldn't be part of a presidential press conference, but I was seeing it on all the screens. The thing about it that's amazing, and this is why Trump is winning, because he is the best at, he loves the poorly educated because they make him work. Because what happens is Mitt Romney comes out and very soberly and like even politely, I mean, even by pre-Trump standards, the meanest thing he said was Trump is very not smart. It was the worst diss track anyone's ever released. But again, he attacks his businesses, and so Trump stages this elaborate thing to be like, look at all this success, look at all these businesses, and then he's going to do the thing he always does when I'm sure he's inevitably confronted about the fact that, hey, those steaks weren't Trump steaks. And he'll say, what do I know? I was out winning elections. I come in, they have steaks here. They tell me they're Trump steaks. How am I supposed to? And that'll be fine. It'll be fine. And that's the magic of Trump, that he is able to do these things, and people go, see, Mitt Romney, see. And remember, he got shellacked in Idaho amongst Mormons. So perhaps the last demographic in America that Mitt Romney carries great influence with, but it showed that it was a thing. Like, I can imagine that the fact that, where Trump was winning in Idaho absolutely lined up with where Mormons weren't, was kind of a thing that he recognized as perhaps a problem. So what does he do? He goes out, destroys the credibility of the guy who criticized him, and then when it turns out that that's all a sham, he'll just go, I came out, the table was there. What do you do? That's what he's going to say, and they'll be like, well, thank you for your time, Mr. Trump.
The thing about Trump, and I think this may help us be more accurate in our predictions of things, is that he's following, the pro wrestling WWE model for this. And so you've got a couple of threads. The narrative has to be very simple. Good guy, bad guy. Shouldn't be hard to tell them apart. That's it. Second, it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you provide some entertainment. And then the third one, of course, is that you've got to top yourself every week. And that's what Trump is doing. He's good. Everyone else is bad or stupid or whatever. The narrative is very, very simple. It doesn't really matter if it's true or not. It's just entertaining. And then, like I said, every week he's got a topper. And you just tune in to see what's going to happen next. The show is predictable, like professional wrestling is. But that's part of the fun. You can watch it stoned. You can watch it while you're doing something else. You can talk about it with your friends. I'm sure all across America, I mean, none of us have jobs or friends, but if you had a job in an office, I'm sure people are saying things like, did you hear what Trump said last night? And he's got that. He understands it. Those are his people. That's his meme. And these other guys just sort of bounce off him like he's a big inflatable. They just can't figure out how to touch him.
One of the most startling numbers I saw last night was on, I don't know, I think it was in Mississippi or Michigan, one of those. Trump supporters said that 90% of Trump supporters said that he's the most honest and trustworthy candidate in the race. Josh, they've been calling it a movement. Isn't this more of a cult now?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It is very culty. And part of it, I wonder, like, some of it might be culty, and some of it might be that thing that people do when they're a fan of something where they imitate it. I remember when I was, going to Iraq, there was the big thing was that we listened to the syndicated, it was the Opie and Anthony show. And all they did was bring on comedians and make fun of Howard Stern. And the comedians all insulted each other, and it was a good time. And then, by the end of the month, we were sitting there doing nothing but rolling around in the woods and listening to this shit. We were insulting each other the exact same way. So I think that it's something like that. These people are saying, they probably think, Trump is a liar, but he's not as big a liar as Ted Cruz or someone else. But that's not how you say it in Trump speak. You say it, he's the most honest, most best person in the world. So it might be something like that, or it might be legitimate Jim Jones, let's go to Africa, build a town kind of cult. I don't know, though. I have no idea, and that's why this is fascinating and terrifying at the same time. And it's amazing because he's trained his supporters to not trust the media and to not, do you think it was an accident last night that no one could hear the questions in the press conference? No, that was deliberate.
Yeah, that's been the case.
Because he wanted, yeah, because he wants people to have these questions, so when he wants to avoid it, he can just say, no, Jeremy, no, Jeremy. And then you're like, who is Jeremy? And what's he talking about? So I don't know. I mean, you would think there would have to be something. There would have to be something that would sort of wake people up to at least the reality of it. But I don't know. This is a messianic election because it's happening on the left too. There are people who, there are people incredibly angry at black people in the South because they're voting for Hillary Clinton. They're saying like, how dare you vote against your self-interest? Don't you know what's best for you? We do. I mean, that's like the exact opposite of what you would think the progressive argument would be. But no one's thinking rationally. They want, Jesus Bernie or Jesus Trump to ascend to the presidency like, after Easter and to rule for 1,000 years. That politics is becoming very religious-y right now, and it is almost concerning. I mean, it's still a little funny, but it's getting into the concerning territory.
But let's go back to Trump as trustworthy, because we may be confusing two different things here. Trump makes a joke about how he doesn't know facts. He'll hire people who know facts. And the stuff he sort of the factual stuff he lies about is a lot of it is just ridiculous shit. Like the way that lawsuits are going, or his famous steaks last night or whatever. I mean, these are not really substantive issues per se. But the thing that people seem to trust Trump on, and again, this is part of getting your message, your narrative down to something very, very simple, is I'm going to be a badass who's going to, run this country in a tough, mean, business-like way out of the White House. Trust me on that. That's the kind of thing that, for example, Hillary is doing exactly the opposite of. She keeps trying to put out facts and lies about them. The thing about the auto bailout and a lot of the Democratic debates, end up in these kind of weird, Bernie plays into this too, these weird kind of wonky things about Glass-Steagall. I mean, nobody knows what these things are. The message is complex. It gets twisted. You get people arguing about provisions of NAFTA or something like that. Trump stands up and says, NAFTA is bad. The reason you're poor and stupid is because of NAFTA. And when
I'm president, there'll be a reverse NAFTA that'll make you rich again. That is exactly right, Peter. Yes.
Exactly. And that is a classic bit of demagoguery. It's a classic thing. Josh Brink brought up that this is becoming religious. I mean, it's a classic kind of religious thing. Your life is terrible now, but when you die, you'll go to heaven and it's going to be paradise. And believe me, because I'm the preacher. And that's the kind of thing that religious demagogues have used for probably centuries. And Trump understands this. And the other candidates, including Bernie Sanders, really don't understand how Trump is running a different race than everybody else, including both parties.
You mentioned...
I just want to build on that a quick second. Just a quick second is that I think Peter's absolutely right, because when it comes to trustworthiness, I mean, he says these are Trump steaks and they're not Trump steaks. People don't probably really care about that. But what he does this, I mean, it's how he frames every issue. This thing sucks. This is the person or the reason why it sucks. And when you elect me, I'm going to make it better because I make things good because that's what I do. And when he says it that way, people they go, hey, that thing does suck. And hey, you know what? That reason of that person, they are kind of fucked up for why that thing sucks. I am going to vote for Trump. I think it's right. Trustworthiness has nothing to do with facts or information. I mean, finally, the dream has been achieved. It's taken, 200 plus years, but finally we've gotten democracy to where they wanted it.
The great experiment is now over.
It's just all gut now. It's all gut. It's not even anything about facts or logic. It's all gut.
Look at how you sell soap. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. You're a complete loser. Girls don't like you. But if you buy this shaving cream or this deodorant, then everything's going to be okay. It's actually very simple, and you can solve it with a vote.
Peter, what's this shaving cream called again? I'm just asking for a friend.
Oh, yeah, let me tell you about it. The stuff is amazing. So,
just send me money to my PayPal. I'll get you a case.
Yeah. No, I got you, man. I got you. But that's it. Trump has caught on to the zeitgeist, and he's not playing the game everybody else is. Ted Cruz is going to have position papers and, go to my website and see my position on this or that. And Trump just stands back and is laughing at these guys. It's like, you guys are playing the game. You're playing right into my hands. Do you understand that? I'll just stand up here and riff all night while you guys confuse the voters.
I like the idea of Trump as the Axe body spray of candidates. But, I guess